Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Raffaella Irie. I'm the Manager Data and Statistics at Afraa. Today, I'll take you through a presentation on the economic impact of COVID-19 on African aviation and analysis of the market outlook. The objective of the presentation is to give you a report of airlines activities for the year 2020 and to give some projections for the year 2021. The presentation is broken down into 4 points. The first point will present the benefits of aviation in Africa, as well as the challenges faced by the industry. The second point is the air transport report for the year 2020. The third point will present the projections for 2021. Finally, we will wrap up the presentation. So let's start by the benefits and challenges of aviation in Africa. Airline industry encompasses the transportation of passengers and goods or cargo by air from one point to another. In Africa, in 2019, airlines carried 95.6 million passengers and 1 million tons of cargo, realizing 71.6% of passenger load factor and 36.8% of cargo load factor. Aviation is a critical sector for African economy. In 2018, the air transport industry associated to the related sectors as tourism supported 7.7 million jobs and contributed by 2.7% to the continental GDP, that is around 63 billion USD. Including revenues from supply chain, wages, expenditures, and the impact of tourism made possible by air transport. Now, let's have a look at the challenges faced by the aviation industry in Africa. Despite its importance to the economy, the performance of aviation in Africa is far below the real potential. African population represents 15% of the global, but African air transport represents less than 3% of the global industry. The reason is that aviation faces many challenges in Africa, among which the imposition of high taxes and charges on the airline by the governments compared to other regions. In Africa, international passengers pay around 69 USD of taxes. In comparison, in Europe, passenger pay 34 USD and 28 USD in Middle East. So there is a huge discrepancy. The second challenge is the poor intra-African connectivity, coupled with market access limitations. The third challenge is the inflated price of jet fuel. In Africa, the fuel price is in average 3% higher compared to other regions. Another challenge is the block fund. Some airlines are unable to access the proceeds of their sales in some African countries because the national reserves are depleted to the extent that foreign currency allocations to airlines are non-existent. Another challenge is the rising number of foreign competitors. Those carriers, generally based in friendlier operating environment, can afford to reduce ticket prices on routes where they are in competition with local airlines. The next challenge is the unfavorable investment environment. Doing business can be challenging in some countries in Africa. Investors face difficulties in starting business, getting licenses, hiring and firing workers, so on and so forth. And the last challenge I will mention is the COVID-19 outbreak, who resulted to halting of passengers for some times now. So now let's have a look at the air transport report for 2020 and see how the COVID-19 impacted African Airlines operations. The number of scheduled passengers carried by African Airlines is estimated to drop from 95.6 million in 2019 to 34.7 million in 2020, representing a year-on-year decline of 63.7%. African Airlines ASKs and RPKs followed the same trend as the global industry. From the end of March, the majority of carriers grounded their aircraft, causing a drastic ASK and SPK and RPK drop of 85% and 94% respectively in April. The reduction in traffic continued until June before reversing with the gradual reopening of borders. The structure of passenger traffic distribution changed from the period before to the period after the COVID-19 outbreak. The share of international traffic that used to be dominant, around 42%, reduced to 38%. And the domestic market took advantage of this crisis as the market share increased by 5%. Intra-African traffic did not move that much and even reduced by 1%. Now let's see a summary of figures for the global African region. African airline industry represents actually 2% of the global industry. With the COVID crisis, the traffic dropped by 63.7%. Domestic traffic is dominant with a share of 43%, and Europe is the first destination outside Africa. The share of traffic to Asia reduced from 11% to 7% due to the COVID crisis. Now, let's have a look at some regional insights. Northern Africa is the leading region in terms of passengers, representing 36.6% of the total continental traffic. In this region, the major part of the traffic is directed outside the continent, in particular to Europe, with 45% before COVID. But with the COVID crisis, the share of traffic to Europe dropped to 40% in favor of Middle East, who gained 2.6%, and intra-African traffic who gained 2.1%. The part of domestic market in this region is around 20%, which is far lower than the continental average. Eastern Africa is the second region in terms of passenger traffic volumes, with a share of 22.6%. Domestic and intra-African traffic are dominant in this region, both representing 70% of the traffic in 2020. Domestic traffic increased by 11%, while intra-African traffic reduced by 6.2%. Here again, Europe is the major destination outside the continent, followed by Asia, having a share of 12% and 7% respectively of the intercontinental traffic. In Southern Africa, the traffic drop related to COVID reached 63.6% compared to 2019. In this region, representing 21% of the continental traffic, the domestic market is clearly dominant. From 66% before the COVID, the share of domestic traffic increased to 70% in 2020. On the other end, intra-African traffic reduced, as well as traffic outside the continent. The last region we're going to consider is the Central and Western African region. Those two regions represented 19.7% of the traffic in Africa. Domestic traffic here represented around 40% in 2019, and intra-African following with 32%. In 2020, with the COVID situation, the share of domestic increased to 51%. The share of Europe, which is the principal destination outside the continent, reduced from 12% in 2019 to 10% in 2020. The traffic to Asia also declined from 5.8% to 2.4%. So let's have a look of key facts we can to summarize this report. The COVID crisis led to significant decrease in domestic traffic, in domestic traffic, particularly in Central and Western Africa, where the share increased by 11.3%, and in Eastern Africa with a 9.2% rise. On the contrary, the share of intra-Africa traffic remains steady, only 1% increase. Europe, which is the first destination outside Africa. Northern Africa is the main point of depart from Africa to Europe, with 40.5% of its traffic directed to Europe. Due to the COVID crisis, the traffic to Asia and America dropped by 2.2% compared to 2019. Eastern Africa is the most impacted region by this reduction of traffic to Asia and America. And this traffic dropped from 11.1% in 2019 to 7.7% in 2020. Now, after those regional insights, let's have a look at the financial impact of COVID. So the impact of COVID in African Airlines finance is drastic. The passenger revenue loss for 2020 is estimated at 10.21 billion USD. We can see that Q2 and 3 was the most affected, and with the border reopening, the situation started to inverse. Now, we expect that in 2021, the situation will get better. In terms of intra-African connectivity, we can see that almost all the airlines reduced their operation in 2020, and this caused a sharp drop in the level of intra-African connectivity. During the first quarter, this drop reached 97%. By the end of 2020, the level of intra-African connectivity was only 90% under the level of the first quarter. Over the year, intra-African connectivity fell by 80% compared to 2019. Now let's have a look of connectivity between African countries. As I said in the previous slide, intra-African connectivity is poor. Only 13 countries have direct flights to more than 20 other African countries. For Ethiopia and Kenya that are leading, they have more than 30 direct flights to other African countries. On the contrary, countries like Eswatini have only one direct flight directed to South Africa. Lesotho and Eritrea, for example, have only 3 direct flights toward other African countries. Now, let's have a look at the projections of the market for the year 2021. For the year 2021, we expect African Airlines capacity to reach 60% of the 2019 levels. In terms of traffic, we expect that the traffic will reach 45% of the 2019 levels. This is this figure is better compared to other regions because in Africa, airlines benefits from less restrictive regulations in terms of travels. In terms of financial results, our forecast estimates that African Airlines will continue to lose money in the upcoming years. In 2021, we estimate the overall passenger revenue losses at 8.35 billion. In terms of intra-African connectivity, we can see that the connectivity is improving with the capacity. And during the first quarter, we reached 68% of the level of the first quarter of 2020. The connectivity level will continue to increase till the end of the year, but will not reach the initial level of 2021. So let's now conclude our presentation and give you some insights. 2020 was a tough year for African aviation with the COVID-19 outbreak. Capacity, traffic, connectivity, and revenue fell drastically compared to 2019. 2021 is expected to be another difficult year for airlines. The traffic recovery will reach only 45%. 45% of the 2019 levels. Estimated passenger revenue loss for African airlines is 8.35 billion USD. The Intra African connectivity, which was already poor, will not reach the pre-COVID level in 2021. In order to assist its member airlines to recover, Afraa has put in place a set of initiatives, among which the interactive capacity sharing portal, the Afraa Flight X project to reduce the navigation charges, the upcoming connectivity portal that will help our airlines to get data intelligence so that they can improve their operations. I invite you to visit our exhibition booth and our website to have more information on all those initiatives. Thank you. Raffaella, up to you.
Thank you very much, Raffaella, my twin sister. Well done. Very comprehensive expose on the air traffic situation and dynamics on the African continent. We very much appreciate that. Thank you very much for your work. Keep on giving us more of this information. We need to understand what is happening in the African airspace so that as airlines and as professionals, we can make informed decisions.